In finance, being short in an asset means investing in such a way that the investor will profit if the value of the asset falls. This is the opposite of a more conventional, long position, where the investor will profit if the value of the asset rises. There are a number of ways of achieving a short position. The most fundamental method is the so-called physical short selling, which involves borrowing assets and selling them. The investor will later purchase the same number of the same type of securities in order to return them to the lender. If the price has fallen in the meantime, the investor will have made a profit equal to the difference. Conversely, if the price has risen, then the investor will bear a loss. The short seller must usually pay a fee to borrow the securities and reimburse the lender for any cash returns such as dividends they were due during the period of lease. Short positions can also be achieved through futures, forwards or options, where the investor can assume an obligation or a right to sell an asset at a future date at a price that is fixed at the time the contract is created. If the price of the asset falls below the agreed price, then the asset can be bought at the lower price before immediately being sold at the higher price specified in the forward or option contract. A short position can also be achieved through certain types of swap, such as contracts for differences. These are agreements between two parties to pay each other the difference if the price of an asset rises or falls, under which the party that will benefit if the price falls will have a short position. Because a short seller can incur a liability to the lender if the price rises, and because it normally does the short sale through a broker, a short seller is typically required to post margin to its broker as collateral to ensure that any such liabilities can be met, and to post additional margin if losses begin to accrue. For analogous reasons, short positions in derivatives also usually involve the posting of margin with the counterparty. Any failure to post margin promptly would prompt the broker or counterparty to close the position. Short selling is an especially systematic and common practice in public securities, futures or currency markets that are fungible and reasonably liquid. A short sale may have a variety of objectives. Speculators may sell short hoping to realize a profit on an instrument that appears overvalued, just as long investors or speculators hope to profit from a rise in the price of an instrument that appears undervalued. Alternatively, traders or fund managers may use offsetting short positions to hedge certain risks that exist in a long position or a portfolio. Research indicates that banning short selling is ineffective and has negative effects on markets. Nevertheless, short selling is subject to criticism and periodically faces hostility from society and policymakers. To profit from a decrease in the price of a security, a short seller can borrow the security and sell it, expecting that it will be cheaper to repurchase in the future. When the seller decides that the time is right, the seller buys the same number of equivalent securities and returns them to the lender. The act of buying back the securities that were sold short is called covering the short or covering the position. A short position can be covered at any time before the securities are due to be returned. Once the position is covered, the short seller is not affected by subsequent rises or falls in the price of the securities, for it already holds the securities that it will return to the lender. The process relies on the fact that the securities are fungible. An investor therefore borrows securities in the same sense as one borrows cash, where the borrowed cash can be freely disposed of and different banknotes or coins can be returned to the lender. This can be contrasted with the sense in which one borrows a bicycle, where the same bicycle must be returned, not merely one that is the same model. Because the price of a share is theoretically unlimited, the potential losses of a short seller are also theoretically unlimited. Shares in Acme Inc. currently trade at $10 per share. Shares in Acme Inc. currently trade at $10 per share. Shorting, or going short, also refer more broadly to any transaction used by an investor to profit from the decline in price of a borrowed asset or financial instrument. Derivatives contracts that can be used in this way include futures, options, and swaps. These contracts are typically cash settled, meaning that no buying or selling of the asset in question is actually involved in the contract. Although typically one side of the contract will be a broker that will effect a back-to-back sale of the asset in question in order to hedge their position. The practice of short selling was likely invented in 1609 by Dutch businessman Isaac Le Maire. a sizable shareholder of the Dutch A.